Hey everybody, it's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Last Rites Gallery and Tattoo Parlor, and today we are here with Tabitha Booth. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. It's great to be able to talk to you. The first question I'd actually really like to ask you is, I always find it interesting when an artist has multiple creative mediums. You work with music, but you also, you did this wall here, and you work in visual art as well. How different of a creative mind frame are you in depending on the medium of art that you work with?
Great question. Well, music is my primary, singing is my primary medium. I discovered that when I was about 18, and so I had other experiences related to renovations, not knowing this unrealized passion and love for music and singing, and so I had the opportunity to work with my father on several renovations. You need hands to build things. So I learned a lot just working with him and putting up, as you see, this wallpaper and faux finishing and things like that. And it's all very interrelated because it's going into the process of seeing what your goal is and then taking the steps to get there.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Could it ever help, like, does maybe working with visual art ever influence your music or vice versa?
Definitely. I'm actually dying to create a combined music and color project. I want to do something that is very influenced with color and use a lot of reds with certain tones and a lot of blues with certain tones and kind of create the music inspired by the emotions that come from meditating on the color, if you will.
Do you have a synesthesia, as they call it?
I do not, no.
Really?
I do not, but I know several people who do.
Yeah, that's always fascinating. Do you sometimes think of an image from playing certain notes, though, or do you sometimes hear certain notes when you are working with visual art? Does it ever go hand in hand?
You know what? For me, I am looking for it. I'm looking for where they connect. It's not already there. So I'm kind of on an adventure as far as finding those connections. I know for some people, it like that synesthesia condition or experience is not, like I said, it's not one that I have. But I'm intrigued by the idea of a visual sort of being like a prompt to create the music, or vice versa, having the music create a prompt to create something else. Like many visual artists will put on specific playlists to get them in the mood or in the groove to create their art, and if from that perspective, I'm a musical provider to the visual artist, and as a visual artist, I feel it's important to have the right vibe with the music because it puts you in a zone.
Yeah. Are you looking for a specific mood or certain zone, like before you get started on a certain project, or does sometimes that mood and zone develop as you further venture into a project?
So with a renovation, for example, if I have a homeowner who wants to redesign a room, I look for their personality and figure out, who they are and what makes them tick to be able to create the right thing for them. And with music, it's similar in the sense of, why am I on stage? Why am I singing to these people? Why should they bother listening to me? So my experience for creating music or design is also, it's almost like a joining of consideration for who's on the other side. And I feel for myself that that's important to consider, because honestly, I don't want to waste people's time while I'm up there doing my thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned, you're working with your father, Paul, who I've interviewed on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
And, I come from an artistic background as well, awesome. And it really has always influenced me as an artist and journalist. So for you, how much does coming from an artistic background influence your own personal artwork?
Yeah, so the biggest influence that it has on me really is how it relates to trauma, and how what stands out to me the most, besides the high level of design and how the design all interweaves together. I mean, every little detail is accounted for, and it creates the experience for the viewer or the person getting a tattoo or just visiting. but either way, it's somebody's wanting to explore something. And similar with trauma, tattoos a lot of times serve exercising a trauma, being able to like rise above the attachment to it, so you can live your life and not be like hounded by this thing that happened. I'm a big fan of meditation. So for me, you know, it goes into, you know, trauma talk a lot, as far as, you know, what is going to help make you feel better in a way that's not going to completely destroy your life. So tattoos are one of those things. You know, meditating is one of those things. Making art, making music. These are all things. Having a focused mind on a goal all allow a person to kind of be released from the chains of the trauma. Mm-hmm. So in thinking about what makes people get a tattoo and thinking about trauma, that comes up a lot in my music also, of accepting the fact that there's trauma and then not being beholden to it.
Very interesting. You know, you mentioned like meditation is something that kind of inspires you. Do you use meditation sometimes as a means of like inspiration or like escape, or a means of exploration, or both?
All of the above. Meditation definitely helps me de-stress, and I can be a little high-strung with the amount of things that I'm interested in and keep pushing to do. And there's a convergence plan that I have in mind where music and renovations converge, which, you know, a music studio, for example, would be a great project for me to get in on, you know. It is an exploratory tool. I definitely explore my inner psyche in meditation. Mostly, though, I use it as an escape to handle stress, so that I don't freak out while I'm trying to work.
Yeah, and it happens more than you think, especially within
totally.
the creative process.
Yeah, totally.
Especially because you're taking something from, you're making matter. You're taking something that doesn't exist and making it into something that only you could decide if it's tangible or not.
Right, totally. Yeah, it's bringing the ethereal memory of something where, you know, it only exists in the ethereal or incorporeal to a tangible medium such as music or art, and then saying to somebody, hey, this is my version of some incorporeal thing. You can listen to it or see it or look at it or whatever.
Yeah. Do you take, because obviously meditation, it's something that you are looking inward from, so
Yes.
you take a lot of inward inspiration,
Right.
but is there ever external inspiration? Do you sometimes look out into the world around you as well as a source?
Honestly, I look to the outside more than the inside. Well, how do I say that? I do look to both. I think that looking on the inside only would be a bit narrow, because there is a whole world that we're interacting with. So to disregard the outside world would make no sense to me. Mm-hmm. So looking at the outside world is also looking at the insides of other people too. So you're looking inward to yourself, and then you're looking inward to others and seeing like, where is the challenge, or where is the strength, you know, where's the awesome part, where's the shitty part.
Yeah.
And being able to use that to just understand. And to me, it's about understanding. So that understanding is also a foundation for my music and how I write music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does looking outward more help you figure out more things about yourself as well?
It informs me of what makes me tick and what doesn't, what I'm attached to and what I'm not, without realizing it sometimes. Having like a preconceived notion about how somebody should be, and most of the time I feel like I don't do that. I'm like, to each their own. I'm really big on that. That has a lot to do with my father. To each their own. Being that he's very controversial with his art and his statement. Compared to the mainstream, that's given me a lot of insight into to each their own, because that it really drives it home of no one can walk in anyone else's shoes.
Yeah.
And then he provides, you know, a light for people looking for that. And I could only hope, maybe, or I trust that there's some people who feel that way with my music.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, what was your question?
Does looking externally ever help you internally as well?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. So I realize, like, if I'm like kind of like butting up against somebody, you know, and I'm thinking they should communicate better this way. We're doing a job. They should know to send me this information first for me to do an effective job. So if then I have to, in a way, be responsible for the communication of others in order to be able to get my best results for them. So that's a thing. And, again, that goes into music a little bit too, where it's like, what's up with you, humans, that I then kind of would process to see like how would another person see that. My new round of songwriting has a lot more to do with kind of looking to the outside and being considerate of the other people more than like my own interpretation of a particular event.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you clearly, because this was the next question I had about your music, because you clearly have a meaning behind it, and I don't know if it's the best way, but like a message. Do you try to leave your music open to interpretation, or are you actually trying to inform a listener on?
That's a great question. I appreciate that question. Well, to answer, I like to leave it open, but I'm leaving it open in the sense of thank you. You too. But to answer your question, can you repeat the question?
Do you like to leave your music open to interpretation, or are you trying to inform a listener on a certain subject matter?
Okay, I like to inform the listener of a certain subject, but I like to utilize the words in a way that allow for it to feel very visceral for the person, meaning they can put themselves in it. So it's open in the sense of accessible, relatable, relatable. I'll use tricky words sometimes. I'll use, I'm a nonconformist in some ways with my lyrical style, so that I'll blur lines using some esoteric words and things that would be like, oh, you can't do this in like effective songwriting, and I'm like, I don't agree. So I don't. I do go with what I feel, and then I also I do edit. So I look at it and see does this make sense, and if it doesn't, does it need to? Does the music carry it, even if it doesn't make sense, to create the feeling? So what I'm after, aside from the words, is the feeling. Is the feeling going to resonate with people? Are they going to feel something? That's all I need to know. If I've achieved that, then that's great.
If somebody were to tell you what they got from your music, even if it was nothing like what you felt when making it, can that maybe, in a way, change your perception on your art? Can another person's interpretation maybe change your way of how you felt about it as opposed to when you first made it?
Well, for example, I'm filming my first music video this month, and April 28th actually, and it's as I've had brainstorming conversations with a few people about the story itself, I've noticed that each person has a different opinion about the ending, especially, and pretty much is it a happy ending or is it a sad ending? Does the person live? Does the person die? What does that mean? Is it final? Is it not final? So also to answer your question about being open, I have made a decision about the ending, but I won't say.
Don't spoil it.
I won't spoil it.
And what I'm curious about is, does the subject matter that you are addressing in your music determine the composition of the music as well? Obviously, it would influence the lyrics that you're singing, but what about the music that you are singing over?
Okay. Most of my musical style comes back to technical ability on the guitar, first and foremost. When I first started writing songs on the guitar, I was very limited in my guitar playing ability, so I could only really do a couple of chords without too many changes, and I generally gravitate towards moodier song structure. So when I would sing and come up with the lyrics, it would also generally point to, something painful and having to accept the fact that it's painful. That's the gist of my lyrical material. And then that sort of limitation in the chords also create a more drone effect. So, which is great because drone is very useful in meditation for one. So there's a meditative quality to my music, just because there's like a redundancy to it, but it creates like a beat and a rhythm that you can kind of zone out too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, limited with chords. I mean, if you look at the greatest hits from the past 40 years, if you look at the greatest hits from the past 40 years, they all use the same 4 chords.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you don't need to know more than 4 chords anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. I used to beat myself up over that, and I got over it and realized, some of the most beautiful songs in human history have 2 chords.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Doyle from the Misfits only says he only knows 2 chords. So
that's probably not true, but
well, I mean, in the end, I think your voice is what shines over it. So I think in the end, that's what people's center focus is, what's going to be on it,
right.
rather than, not to discredit what's happening in the background, but I think in the end, it's the voice that dictates the message and dictates the overall composition.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to agree with you on that. Even when I jam with other people, just for like a music jam night or something, I still have a consistent vocal style that I go with, whether I'm playing the guitar or someone else is shredding on the guitar or other instruments. So there is definitely a common thread, regardless of the genre underneath.
Yeah, I mean, collaborating with other people though definitely has to
awesome.
Broaden your horizons a little bit.
Totally, yeah. I had played when I first started jamming with people. I had a bit of a band going on. This was many years ago, and when I had the opportunity to jam with other musicians, it was a complete eye-opening, profound experience that I realized this is a drum, bass, and guitar just like before, but their personalities and how that comes through in the rhythms and the melodies is so different, which challenged me as a singer and as a lyricist on the spot to see what am I going to do. So definitely cool to play music with other musicians. Yeah, big time.
And the final question I'd like to ask you is, and I love asking artists this, sometimes they hate this question with a burning passion, and sometimes they elaborate on it the most. Whether you're working in visual art or music, how do you know when a piece of art is finished?
It's never done.
Yeah, only abandoned?
It's never done. Get to a happy place with it, and just be happy with how much of yourself you put into it, and then move on.
Yeah, it's always like the hardest question, to sometimes ask people. I interviewed a musician one time, and he was just like, "When I get the final mix back, that's when I."
Yeah, I hear that. I have Death by Bridge is in the mastering house right now, and I have a band version and a beat version, and they're going to be released in May with the music video. So I'm super excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is there just anything else that you would like to promote before we go, aside from the Death by Bridge video?
Yeah. Check out my YouTube channel. Type in Tabitha Booth. My website is tabithaboothsongs.com, and I'll have all kinds of music and my merchandise. I make a lot of it by hand, so you can buy like custom random shit, candles, whatever, stuff that I like to do stuff.
That's awesome. Can we be expecting to see it live anytime, like any performances coming up?
Yeah, I have playing at the Delancey on May 18th here in New York.
I just did a showcase there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I've never been. I'm super excited.
Yeah, it's a really nice place.
Yeah, awesome. And I have a pending show on coming up, but I guess it's pending, so.
Yeah.
But May 18th at the Delancey. See you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tabitha.
Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate it.
Of course. Everybody, Tabitha Booth, Death by Bridge, coming out in May. Catch her at the Delancey, May 18th. We'll see you next time.